Welcome everybody. I'm John Kingsbury with Mountain Counties Water Resources Association, and thank you very much for coming. This is a great audience. We've got a lot of people coming, and obviously it's because of our speakers, so I want to thank you very much. Today it's the Sacramento, San Joaquin, and the Sierra Nevada tributaries, and what we're going to be talking about today, which you're going to hear from our speakers, is the stressors of both systems and also the fix. I want to first of all thank our sponsor, our host, Placer County Water Agency, especially the two out front that are here all the time, and we really appreciate all their help, and it's Sherry Sprunk and Lori Young. Thank you again. All right, what we're going to try to do is, I had an opportunity to get hold of Eileen Sobeck, and I'd like to invite her up here. She's brand new at the State Water Resources Control Board, less than 2 months, I think. And it's great to have her here, and do take the time, I think she's going to be here all day, do take the time to introduce yourself, meet her, give her your card or whatever. We're really looking forward to working with her at the State Water Board. In fact, quick little story, Eileen, if you can come up. And Felicia's Marcus actually gave me a call on a Saturday, believe it or not, to let me know that I needed to get a hold of Eileen Sobeck. And this is back when she was still in DC. And so we communicated back and forth, and a lot of it was just her schedule. She's real busy, so I'm very appreciative that you were able to take a little bit of time today to come up, introduce yourself, and maybe you could come up and give your 2-month perspective on what's happening in the State Water Board. So welcome, Eileen, please.
Thank you, John, and the association for inviting me here and giving me just a couple minutes. Because I'm the new kid on the block and probably know the least about California water issues of anybody in this room, I really am here to listen and learn, and that's really the mode I'm in at the State Water Board. I did grow up in California. I grew up in Davis, went to school and law school here. But then I went to the East Coast, where I married my office mate, who was also from California. But I was in the East Coast working for the federal government for 38 years at the Department of Justice, Department of the Interior, and most recently as the director of the National Marine Fisheries Service, part of NOAA. So this has been a great opportunity to come back to the state as a recovering lawyer and a recovering federal bureaucrat. I know I'm still new because even though I've heard every lawyer joke and fish joke in the book and don't laugh at them anymore, the last few weeks I found myself really laughing at water and farming jokes. And I'm sometimes the only one laughing because everybody else has heard the jokes 50 times. So you can do me a favor today if you tell me all your good old chestnuts of farming and water jokes so I can get it out of my system and I won't look like such a newbie when I go to other gatherings. But it's been a real privilege to come back and learn about the issues that are facing all of us here in California. I don't think it's ever been more important, and I've been totally overwhelmed at the wealth of knowledge, the positive collaborative efforts to deal with tough issues. I know that we've been coming off of a rough drought and a rough good water year, and it really seems to have brought out the best in everyone. The State Board, as I'm sure you know, has a very broad portfolio. I was a little bit surprised when I got here and found out that one of the most immediate things facing the board was adopting the new statewide policy establishing strict environmental standards for cannabis cultivation, something that we didn't really deal with at the federal level. Maybe part of the Justice Department does, but not my part. But really, seriously, it could not be a more important issue to deal with this the implementation of statewide legislation regarding cannabis. If you're going to bring a new part of an industry online and hold them to stricter standards, doing it the right way and trying to get it done collaboratively right first time around, I think is very important. I'm very proud of the action that the board took last week to move forward on that. The board continues to pursue its priorities regarding the state's Human Right to Water program. We're working, one aspect of that is to work to consolidate small water districts. What we found, another illustration of the problems with some of the very small water districts in the state, With the wine country fires, there were a number of very small water districts whose facilities were burned to the ground, and they really don't have the resources to bring themselves back online. So we're moving to, in appropriate circumstances, to help look at opportunities to merge smaller systems or work with small systems that are adjacent to larger systems to make sure that that doesn't happen elsewhere. If that weren't enough, we are working on implementing permanent regulations or developing permanent regulations to figure out, with regard to the state's conservation as a way of life, water conservation as a way of life campaign, to figure out which emergency drought measures, especially regarding conservation of urban water, should be made permanent. So look for developments on that coming down the pike. We're looking to finalize our procedures, our procedures regarding dredge and fill material, our wetlands regulations. We are in the process, the last few stages of finalizing those regulations. We're working to establish statewide provisions regarding aquatic toxicity and statewide standards for bacteria water quality. There's just a lot on the state board's plate, and we're not talking about the long-term horizon. We're talking about what the board hopes to, the state board hopes to address in the next year or 18 months. This administration, as I'm finding out very quickly, has been a very active administration in the water world and has made a lot of demands and on the board and put a lot on the board's plate. And I think the State Water Board, chaired by Felicia Marcus, has really stepped up to the plate on that. That little laundry list of priorities that I just gave you are all the things that we're not talking about here today. But the State Water Board obviously has a role in many of the issues that are going to be addressed in much more detail here today. Speaking of the Brown administration, there is the State Water Fix proceeding that the board is in the middle of working on. Hearings in that proceeding are going to recommence in the middle of January, and that will once again be front and centered on the board's plate. But probably the most relevant thing that the state board is working on, that I'm sure that it has your attention and needs your attention, and we want input from everybody in this room and everyone else who is an interested partner or stakeholder in Bay Delta issues, is that the board is in the midst of updating its water quality control plan for the Bay Delta. Obviously, the state board's role is to establish water right and water quality requirements to protect human, fish, and wildlife uses of Bay Delta waters. We are one of many federal and state agencies working on various fronts to address Bay Delta issues. It's going to take many actions from many different players, but our part is to amend and update our water quality control plan for the Bay Delta. We're going to update the water quality and flow requirements for the Delta. This hasn't been done we haven't substantially updated the plan in the last 20 years. And we know in the last 10 years there have been significant declines and changes in the Bay Delta's ecosystem health, and the need for action really can't be doubted anymore. We have a mandate to get this out and done as soon as we can. It's a major planning process. It's been a long time in the making. I won't go into the history of it, but it's been divided into two phases. Phase 1 is focused on updating San Joaquin River flows for the protection of fish and wildlife, as well as Southern Delta salinity requirements for the protection of agriculture. We are in the process of finalizing the Phase 1 document, and we are going to get it out as soon as we can, and I can't tell you exactly what that means or what the time frame is. It's as soon as we can. It's one of the board's top priorities, and it's one of my top priorities to help my staff get the resources they need to get that out as soon as possible. Phase 2 is focused on inflow requirements from the Sacramento River and its tributaries, and the Delta East Side tributaries, Delta outflows, cold water habitat, and interior Delta flows for the protection of fish and wildlife. I know that people are anxious to see what the board's proposal is on phase 2. Again, we're working as fast as we can. We're actually in the midst of an informal comment period. About a month ago, we put out the final science review for phase 2 and a series of questions that will be very helpful if people look at them, reflect on them, and get some comments into us. It will help us, we hope, narrow some of the issues, or at least understand the concerns that various stakeholders have on the questions that we've asked. I think it will help us formulate a phase 2 draft, a better phase 2 draft, and we'll focus the attention of our board members on as early as possible on your concerns with respect to phase 2. So those documents came out the first week of October, and the comment period closes on November 9th. So if you need help finding them, let me know. If you are unclear on what the questions mean and what they're about, please contact our staff. We would love to talk to you about it, and we welcome your written comments at the beginning of November. So basically, our strategy as the board is to look at the entire Bay Delta ecosystem on a watershed level, consider flow and non-flow measures and adaptive management structure, rather than focusing on individual species or individual water rights. Our current planning efforts are proposing to dedicate a scalable portion of inflow of Bay Delta tributary systems to the environment, or as we've been calling it, some % of unimpaired flow. This approach seeks to restore system variability to which native species have adapted, and to provide a budget of water that can be adaptively managed to meet ecosystem functions. While flow is critical, we clearly recognize that flow alone will not adequately protect fish and wildlife. We've heard extensive comments and received extensive testimony and received thousands of comments that indicate that non-flow stressors such as loss of habitat and predation are contributing to the decline of the Delta ecosystem. We realize that, and we're trying to take that into account. We're encouraging and inviting the development of non-flow measures to complement our flow objectives, and we know that there are ongoing efforts for some voluntary agreements. Don't know what the likelihood of success of those are. That is happening outside of the board process at the moment, but we welcome any and all creative efforts to address these issues. I'm going to close with that so that we can get to the more substantive portion of the program as quickly as possible. Thank you again for your invitation, and I hope to be here all day. Thank you, John.